Hey folks, tonight we're heading somewhere brutally cold. Not your average winter chill. This is the kind of cold that gnaws at your fingertips like a starving animal, seeps into your bones like liquid nitrogen, and clings to your soul like a soaked wool blanket you can't shake off. Welcome to Bastogne. It's December 1944, deep in the heart of the Ardennes forest. Snow piles up to your waist, skeletal trees stand like frozen sentinels, and the sky's a permanent slab of concrete. You're about to step off a coughing, exhaust-choked truck into a full-blown siege. And trust me, you're not prepared. Before you get too comfortable, hit that like button and subscribe. But only if you genuinely dig what I'm doing here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Bet your current setup's way cozier than what we're diving into. Let's be real, your survival odds aren't great. Now, dim those lights, maybe crank up a fan for ambient noise, and let's slide into tonight's journey together. Your boots slam into ice-rutted tracks carved by countless trucks before yours. This is Bastogne, Belgium, or what's left of it. Once a quaint market town, now a jagged graveyard of shattered buildings, splintered pines, and smoldering wrecks. The air reeks of frozen metal, gunpowder, and something sweet-rotten you refuse to name. The Battle of the Bulge just kicked off, and you're center stage. You're with the 101st Airborne, the Screaming Eagles. Normally you'd parachute behind enemy lines, but this time they trucked you in to plug a gaping hole. In Allied defenses, the Germans launched a massive surprise offensive through the Ardennes, and Bastogne controls 7 critical roads. Lose this town, and the entire Western Front collapses. No pressure, no formal briefing either. Just some grizzled sergeant barking. Dig in. You'll be here a while. He doesn't mention you're surrounded. Doesn't say temperatures will plunge below zero tonight. Definitely. Doesn't warn you'll be sleeping in a self-dug hole like some frozen rodent. You shuffle past hollow-eyed soldiers already entrenched. One glances up, his face a mask of frost, and gives you a grim nod. Welcome to Hell's front porch. The snow disguises treacherous terrain, broken branches, spent shell casings, chunks of rubble. You stumble twice before reaching your assigned spot. A broken fence and charred shrubs. No cover, no shelter, just you, your gear, and a flimsy shovel last used for gardening, not surviving armored assaults. You start digging. The top layer's powder, easy. Then you hit permafrost. And suddenly it's like chiseling concrete with a spoon. You hack, curse, battle the ground. Gloves come off for better grip. Your fingers numb instantly. Your breath fogs, so thick you mistake it for smoke. An hour later, you've carved a waist-deep coffin barely wide enough to crouch in. You sit knees to chest like a shivering frog, lining the bottom with damp pine branches. Moisture soaks through your pants anyway. Your legs scream. Toes burn, then tingle, then go ominously silent. You try not to dwell on that last part. The forest groans around you. Distant gunfire pops sporadically. An engine growls, or maybe it's the wind howling through wreckage. Snow muffles everything into eerie ambiguity. You spot your first German patrol before the officers do, 2 shadows, slithering through the trees. They don't approach tonight, but your grip on the M1 turns white-knuckled. Safety's off, finger near trigger. Then you realize you don't actually want to shoot. You're not sure you could. They're just silhouettes. No faces yet. Historically, this was the Allies' most desperate hour. The 101st was ordered to hold Bastogne at all costs, encircled, outgunned, starving. No airdrops, no reinforcements, just grit and frozen optimism. When Germans demanded surrender, General McAuliffe famously replied, "Nuts." Historians still debate whether that was defiance or hypothermia talking. Your boots feel like cement blocks now. You wiggle dead toes. Your canteens, half frozen. You suck on an ice chip because snow's your only water source. You consider pissing in the Foxhole for fleeting warmth, but decide that's a rock bottom you're not ready for. Fun fact they omit from recruitment brochures: many Bastogne soldiers used helmet liners and ration tins as makeshift toilets. Medics dodged both bullets and biohazard minefields. Quaint, right? You fantasize about a fire, just a small one. But light equals suicide here. So you breathe into your gloves, rocking slightly, pretending it helps. Your inventory: one damp blanket, one rusty shovel, a questionably lubricated rifle, and two spam tins. You trade it all for dry socks. Hell, for a thermostat. A greenish flare arcs over the woods, sickly glow like a ghostly finger. You duck instinctively, though it's not aimed at you. Probably some other frostbitten soul equally terrified. You can't feel your knees anymore. You jolt awake, if you can call it that, to a hissing overhead. Your spine cracks as you lurch upright. Not a dream. Still here. Your back soaked from frozen sludge. Your right foot? Gone. Not numb, absent. That's tomorrow's problem. Today, you dig deeper. Because yesterday's hole won't cut it. 3 feet down, one shovel width wide. Your helmet barely clears the rim. A nearby mortar would turn this into your grave. So with disobedient fingers and a leaden shovel, you start again. Here's a weird discovery. Deeper earth gets warmer. Not warm, but less arctic. Below the frost line, dirt turns to muddy sludge, your personal gold rush. Every inch deeper is another inch between you and German steel. But there's a catch. Always is. Deeper means groundwater seeps in. Filthy, icy soup at the bottom. You bail with your helmet, but that just leaves your head freezing. Eventually you surrender, lining the muck with pine carpet before sitting. It squelches. You stare at the horizon, refusing to cry. Nearby, a guy chips ice with a German shovel. Took it off a dead one. He says casually. You nod. War turns everyone into scavengers. A lieutenant passes. New guy, too clean, moving too fast. Expect more shelling tonight, he mutters without stopping. His face looks wax museum fresh. A single artillery shell detonates down the line. Not close, not far. You curl into yourself as snow shaken from trees dust your helmet. You don't brush it off. You're part of the landscape now. During the actual siege, soldiers often stayed buried in their foxholes for 72-hour stretches. No bathroom breaks, no hot meals, not even proper sleep. The shelling came so randomly that sticking your head up was basically volunteering for the obituaries. German artillery had mastered tree bursts, shells detonating midair to rain shrapnel downward like lethal hail. Your foxhole was your only shield, and even that wasn't foolproof. Command might have underestimated the German push through the Ardennes, or maybe it was all some calculated gamble. Either way, guys like you, ordinary Joes with thin coats and dull shovels, paid the price. You try not to think about those who had it worse. The ones caught in open fields when shelling started, or huddled in bombed-out barns with zero protection. The stories haunt you, like the fresh-faced kid who peeked out during an artillery barrage. They found his helmet wedged in a tree branch, nothing beneath it. But hey, silver lining. Your foxhole's finally deep enough to crouch unseen. Maybe even lie down, not that you'll sleep. At best, you'll doze in 10-minute chunks, jerking awake each time your numb fingers drop your rifle. Another soldier drops into the adjacent hole, maybe 19, with a patchy mustache and oversized boots. He just nods and starts digging. Conversations here are rare and practical. Got extra rations? Seen any krauts? During a lull in shelling, he flashes a photo, girlfriend or sister, you can't tell, before tucking it away. No words needed. In your lap rests the M1 Garand, 8 rounds of American engineering. Fun fact, it was the world's first standard-issue semi-auto combat rifle. High-tech for 44 if the cold doesn't jam it. Guys slept with rifles under their armpits to keep the action from freezing solid. Sometimes it worked. You check yours. The bolt sticks. You curse, tap it with your canteen, exhale when it budges. Small victories. Then the ground quakes. A shell lands 100 yards off, close enough to rattle your teeth. Snow confetti sprays into your hole. You press against the wall, heart hammering. Another impact. Closer. This is it, you think. Not some heroic charge, just buried alive in frozen dirt, forgotten. Then, silence. Eerie. You think you've gone deaf until the kid next door whispers, "Still here." Yeah, you croak. He wipes his nose on his sleeve and resumes digging. You try stretching. Your joints crack like dry twigs. Neck vertebrae pop in sequence, a frozen percussion line. You slept, maybe 20 minutes. Time here isn't measured in hours, but in flinches between explosions. Your breath comes in shallow puffs as you brace for another day of frostbite and artillery roulette. You'd kill for coffee, sell your soul for dry socks. Instead, you get front row seats to Bastogne, the horror show. The wind kicks up, dumping snow in your face. You don't bother brushing it off. You're basically a frozen soldier figurine now, wide-eyed, fingers locked around an unfired rifle. Meet your two constant companions. Frostbite starts subtle, toes go numb, fingers lose feeling. You think you're tough until things stop tingling. Swelling follows. Or worse, shrinkage. You've seen guys with blackened toes, boots cut off, swollen feet. One passed out when medics peeled his socks. Another just didn't wake up. Shellfire never sleeps. She's that obnoxious roommate who slams doors at 3 a.m. German artillery could hit from miles away. You'd only hear the faint hiss before everything went white. Tree bursts were worst, shrapnel showering down like jagged snowflakes. Foxholes didn't help much. You just covered your head and prayed. Hence Bastogne's nickname, the meat grinder. Historically, the Germans lobbed 2,000 shells daily into Bastogne. Daily. The barrage aimed to shatter morale, wreck supply lines, and break the 101st. Yet somehow they held. Through sheer grit, luck, logistics, probably all three. But you're just thinking about socks. You shift, big mistake. Your Foxhole's bottom froze overnight. Your boots are now ice-encased bricks. Yanking one free produces a grotesque squelch. Your sock stayed behind. The skin's technically there, but sensation? Gone. You jam your foot back in and pretend it didn't happen. Jenkins, he looks like one, leans over smoking a cigarette. God knows how he lit it. And mutters, bet you $10 they shell us before lunch. No bet, you say? They're early risers. He grins like this is all some dark comedy. Maybe it is. A mechanical hum cuts through the wind. You stiffen. Not shelling. Too steady. Peeking over the rim, you spot it. A German recon plane skimming the treetops, photographing your positions. The Luftwaffe wasn't supposed to fly in this weather, yet here they are. Sometimes these flights preceded bombing runs. Other times, nothing. The randomness is the torture. Fringe fact, some guys hallucinated from cold and exhaustion. Glowing foxes, phantom music. One even swore he saw his gym teacher offering hot cocoa. They called it foxhole fever. You're not there yet. Probably. You rest your helmet against the hole's edge. Close your eyes for 1 second. Crack. A rifle shot. Close. You and Jenkins snap to attention, scanning the woods. Might be a scout, he whispers. Or a sniper. Nothing moves. Just a bird taking flight. You both exhale, almost laugh, then return to misery. My girl back home's probably drinking cocoa, Jenkins says. Thinks I'm on some grand adventure. You grunt. Invite her to switch places. I did, he deadpants. She sent cookies instead. For a second, you forget you're at war. Just two guys sharing gallows humor in the snow. Then another shell hits. Close enough to liquefy your spine. You'd think you'd adapt to this. The cold, the hunger, the permanent hunch. Nope. Your body just endures, and not gracefully. Breakfast arrives via airborne spam can. It lands half buried in snow. Inside, mystery meat frozen into a brick. You chip off chunks with your bayonet. It tastes like salted tire rubber. Jenkins gets creamed beef, takes one whiff and buries it like a war crime. Hunger's only half the problem. The real enemy? Anticipation. Stuck in a frozen hole, surrounded by unseen enemies, with explosions as your metronome. You replay old conversations. Wonder if your family got your last letter. Remember your mom's roast potatoes, the crispness, the butter, until a shell blast replaces the memory with cordite stench. Historically, Bastogne's food situation was dire. Cut off from supplies, men survived on 1 tin per day. Some stopped eating altogether. Patton promised to arrive, with the fury of 100 gods. The guys in the holes just wanted socks. Your hands betray you by mid-morning. Fingers won't close properly. Tying your boots feels like toddler fumbling. The hollowness in your gut isn't hunger anymore. It's erosion. German artillery picks up, testing the lines, softening you. Whump whump of mortars. Then the gut punch crack of tree bursts. You duck by reflex now. Jenkins flips playing cards absently. In movies they always have whiskey and smokes. Where's my damn whiskey? Paris, you say? Figures. So's the dame who promised to write. An old-timer traded 3 bean tins for a chocolate bar. Didn't eat it, just unwrapped it slowly, sniffed it like perfume, then stored it in his sock. A reminder that somewhere, chocolate still existed. Fringe fact, one GI tried toasting bread on his helmet over a hidden candle. Result, lukewarm soot mush. He ate it anyway. Tastes like home, he lied. You choke down the last spam chunk, toss the can. The wind slaps you with sideways snow. The sky's still that same corpse gray. You consider asking Jenkins for a story, but what tale could top this reality? So you just sit, not talking, not thinking, just trying to stay small, stay alive. Your foot throbs like a second heartbeat when you finally check it. Big mistake. Peeling off the boot reveals toes the color of spoiled milk, waxy, stiff, unresponsive to poking. You stare at them like they belong to someone else. The sock goes back on with military precision, laces pulled tight. Deal with it later. Or never. The worst part? You've got 12 more hours of this. The sky hasn't changed since dawn. That same ashen gray, like God stretched an old bedsheet over the battlefield. Noon comes and goes without ceremony. No church bells, no mess call, just the creeping certainty that you'll spend another endless shift frozen in this hole, waiting for someone to make a move. Hold the line sounds heroic in war movies. In reality, it means stay still, stay cold, stay invisible. You and Jenkins sink deeper into your respective foxholes. No overhead cover here. Some guys rigged lids from branches or scrap metal, but most got blown to bits by German 88s or collapsed under snow weight. So you crouch and wait and pray your silhouette doesn't catch a sniper's eye. Movement equals death here. Literally. Yesterday some kid stood up to piss. They never found his torso. The medic just marked the hole empty. Is boredom worse than fear? Hard to say. Holding the line doesn't mean there's an actual line. No barbed wire, no fortifications. The enemy could be 50 yards away or 5. Could be asleep. Could be watching. That uncertainty is psychological warfare. And it's working. HQ calls this the northern shoulder. Sounds strategic. All you see is snow and skeletons of trees. Your rifle rests across your knees like a talisman. Haven't fired a shot yet. Blessing or omen. Historically, this sector was Bastogne's thinnest, low on men, supplies, morale. The Germans knew. That's why they hammered here. Break through, and the whole defense unravels. Some historians claim only sheer stubbornness kept the Americans intact, undersupplied, sleep-deprived, but refusing to quit. Many lacked proper winter gear. Documented fact. Some wore fall uniforms with summer boots. A quarter of the division had no gloves. Your coat? Might as well be tissue paper. You wrap your arms around yourself, bouncing knees to keep blood flowing. Helps for about 30 seconds. A patrol goes out at midday. Not you. Lucky. 6 guys in white camouflage vanish into the woods eastward. No one says it, but everyone thinks it. Not all are coming back. They return 2 hours later. 5 men. 1 limping. 1 silently crying. No one asks. You just make space along the line like rearranging tombstones. Jenkins pulls a folded sketch from his breast pocket. A house with a slanted roof, porch swing, chimney smoke. Back home, he murmurs. Not fancy, but there's heat. And a dog. He tucks it away before the wind steals it. You try picturing your own home, but the memory's slippery now. Faces blur. Rooms feel foreign. You start wondering if this foxhole is your real address. If the before was the dream. Another shell explodes in the distance. You don't flinch this time. Progress or numbness. To fight the silence, Jenkins hums a radio tune from home. You join in softly. The melody evaporates into the wind. Somewhere, a sergeant whispers about repositioning mortars. You don't catch details, too focused on snow infiltrating your left boot again. The weather's personally targeting you now. Fringe fact, during the worst of the siege, soldiers wrote on their helmets in chalk. Jokes. Prayers. One scrawled, "If you're reading this, I didn't duck fast enough." Another drew a Christmas tree with "Dear Santa, I've been mostly good." You consider writing something too, but your chalk's long gone. Instead, you carve one word inside your helmet liner with a knife. Soon. Threat, hope, curse. Holding the line also means holding your bladder. You haven't gone in hours, heard horror stories about guys freezing midstream. Literally. So you wait. Miserably. Finally, Jenkins whispers, "I'm going." "Godspeed," you say, not joking. He crawls behind the line, does his business, scurries back like he crossed no man's land. Probably did. Add bathroom logistics to the list of things basic training forgot to mention. Another hour passes. Maybe two. The sun droops behind trees, stretching blue shadows across snow. You know what that means. Colder's coming. With it, a night of questions. Will they attack under darkness? Will reinforcements arrive? Will I lose this damn toe? No answers. Just the tightening in your chest. Then, unexpected, someone starts singing Silent Night. Not ironically. Not loud. Just soft, like a lullaby. And for once, nobody tells him to shut up. Because holding the line is hard. But holding on to yourself? Harder. The high-pitched mechanical scream hits your eardrums first, like nails dragged across a chalkboard at 20,000 feet. You freeze mid-sip of snowmelt, canteen hovering. Jenkins mutters a single word that curdles your blood. Incoming. You both turtle into your holes, helmets pulled low like armored snails. Scanning the sky through skeletal branches, you spot it, sleek, silver, and decidedly unfriendly. A Messerschmitt Bf 109 buzzing treetops. Then another. The Luftwaffe's throwing a party, and you're the unwilling guests. The first pass is just recon, quick and dirty. The second? That's when the Real dance begins. A third plane swoops lower, engine roaring. Machine gun fire stitches the ground, rat-tat-tat-tat. Bullets shredding trees and snow like God's own lawnmower. Someone 2 foxholes over screams. You don't look. Don't move. Movement means you're next. This is the part they never show in war films. The helplessness. You're not fighting. You're waiting. Hoping the pilots didn't mark your sad little dirt coffin as today's bullseye. Historically, air support at Bastogne was rarer than a hot meal. Most days, snowstorms grounded everything. But when clouds briefly parted, the Luftwaffe pounced like vultures. They knew you were pinned. These strafing runs were just kicking men already drowning in frozen mud. The worst part? You can't fight back. Rifles are useless against aircraft. The .50 calories are either frozen solid or buried under snowdrifts. Anti-air units? Scattered or out of ammo. So you crouch and hope. After 3 passes, silence returns. But it's the tense kind, like when the dentist drill stops, but you know he's reaching for another tool. Jenkins breaks it. Thought they weren't flying anymore. You shake snow from your collar. Made an exception for us. He nods. How thoughtful. And just like that, you're back to pretending this is normal. Rifle in hand, breath held, waiting for the next act. You notice your hands trembling, not just from cold. Something deeper. Your fingers twitch like broken piano keys. You grip your thighs to stop it. Doesn't work. The truth is, you're exhausted on a cellular level. Your brain's running at half speed. Muscles ache in places anatomy forgot. Your eyes burn from unblinking vigilance. Corporal Derry watches from 3 holes down, beard crusted with icicles, binoculars glued to his face. Rumor says he survived Sicily, Normandy, and Holland. Either he's blessed or cursed. Ever seen anything like this? You ask. He lowers the binoculars. Not this cold. Not this quiet. That's what gets you. You understand now. The silence isn't peaceful. It's loaded, like the forest is holding its breath. To cut the tension, Jenkins produces a harmonica from some magical pocket. Probably traded his last cigarette for it. He plays a blues riff. Low, soulful, the notes dissolving into snowflakes. You want to thank him, but instead you lean back and let the music fill the cracks in your psyche. Fringe fact, some guys brought instruments into combat. Guitars, violins. Even a guy in the 327th who played White Christmas during a snowstorm with sniper fire as backup. Historians still debate if that's poetic or psychotic. The day drags like a dying man's breath. Your legs are lead. Your foot's officially deceased. You wiggle toes and get zero response. The medic's overwhelmed with guys coughing blood or missing fingers, so you stay quiet. Then word slithers down the line. Enemy spotted near East Ridge. Instantly, rifles get checked. Helmets adjusted. Triggers kissed. Jenkins whispers, "Think they'll come tonight?" You glance at your grenade. Would you in their boots? Hell no. I'd be in Berlin eating schnitzel. But he checks his rifle anyway. The planes may be gone, but the fear sticks like frostbite. Every shadow could be a barrel. Every branch a potential scope. You know they're out there. Watching. Waiting. As the sun bleeds out, long blue fingers stretch across the snow. The cold returns, hungrier now. Night's coming. With it, another battle. Maybe with bullets. Maybe with silence. Maybe with your own body finally surrendering. Either way, you're not ready. The mechanical growl doesn't sound like artillery. It's deeper, heavier, vibrating through the frozen earth into your bones before your ears even register it. You're upright before fully conscious, heart already slamming against your ribs. Not the sharp crack of mortars. This is the rhythmic ka-thunk of armored treads crushing everything in their path. You and Jenkins lock eyes across the snow. Tank. You both say at the same time, the word hanging in the air like artillery smoke. You scramble for your rifle, even though you know it's as useful as a toothpick against a steel fortress. Jenkins grips his helmet like it's a holy relic that might teleport him home. The rumble grows louder. Not one engine, but multiple. 3, 5. Impossible to tell through the distortion of cold and distance. Peering over the Foxholes edge, you press your cheek to the snow like a safecracker listening for tumblers. Then you feel it, the faintest tremor through the ground, like the earth itself is whispering run. Where's our bazooka team? You hiss. Jenkins just shakes his head. The guys with the tube launcher were here yesterday. Now they're ghosts. Moved? Dead? Doesn't matter. You're fresh out of anti-tank miracles. Here's the kicker. You can't run. Bastogne's surrounded. In this frozen forest, in this pathetic line of glorified ditches, you're just another soft target in a shooting gallery. Historically, the Germans brought their monsters to this forest, tiger is and panthers. The Tiger alone weighed 60 tons, packed an 88mm cannon, and wore armor thick enough to laugh off Allied shells. Infantry without proper support? Bait. The sound crescendos. Now you can feel the tread patterns. Ka-thunk, as the beast grinds over tree roots and frozen corpses alike. Then the forest edge shivers. And there it is. A Tiger tank, black as a coal miner's soul, taller than your childhood home. Its muzzle sweeps left, right, like a king surveying peasants. A spotlight flares, slicing through the pre-dawn gloom, skating over treetops and, for one heart-stopping second, over your foxhole. You don't breathe. Don't blink. The light moves on. Jenkins exhales something that might be a prayer or a curse. You both grip your rifles like talismans, though you know they're useless. It's like watching a tsunami approach while holding a teacup. That's when you remember the mines supposedly laid along the path. Were they ever actually placed? Frozen in some supply truck? Another wartime fairy tale? The Tiger lumbers forward another few yards. Branches scream as they snap beneath its weight. Metal shrieks on rock. Then, silence. Another spotlight blooms to the west. Then south. Realization dawns. They're probing. This isn't an assault. It's a test. They're feeling for weak spots. Jenkins leans over, breath fogging violently. If they keep coming, we're toast. You nod. You've already done the math. Reaching into your coat, you pull out your last grenade. Pitiful little thing. If you lob it just right, you might scratch the paint. Maybe disable a tread. But you'd have to get close. Too close. Then the Tiger's turret swivels. Directly at you. You both flatten into the snow, becoming part of the Foxholes architecture. 5 eternal seconds pass. A voice calls out in German. Calm, curious. Another answers. The turret turns away. They don't know you're here. Or they do, and you're not worth the shell. The tank rumbles forward again, then stops. The crew chats inside their steel cocoon, voices muffled but relaxed. Not expecting resistance. That's when your suicidal idea hatches. Stay hidden, you whisper. Let them pass. Jenkins' eyes widen. And if they don't, You thumb the grenade's pin. Then we go out loud. He grins like a death row inmate. Best plan we've got. Minutes crawl by. Maybe just one. Feels like 10. Then, miracle of miracles, the engine growl changes pitch. The tiger is turning away. Jenkins sags against the foxhole wall. Gonna need new pants after that. You laugh, a shaky, breathless thing. Because you survived. Barely. What you don't say, what neither of you voices, is the truth now tattooed on your brain. They'll be back. Morning comes like a thief. Gray light creeping through the trees without warmth or mercy. You blink crusted snow from your eyelashes, your body one solid ache. Jenkins is already awake, staring at his hands like he's never seen them before. His fingertips are the color of spoiled meat. Still got all 10? He asks without looking up. You flex your toes inside your boots. Nothing. Define God. He snorts. Fair. The forest is quiet in a way that feels wrong after last night's terror. No birds. No wind. Just the occasional creak of a tree limb heavy with ice. You take stock. 7 rounds left in the M1. 1 frozen canteen. Half a chocolate bar traded for 2 cigarettes. Your right foot might be dying. Breakfast is a can of something labeled meat and vegetable hash that's mostly ice crystals. You chip off a chunk with your bayonet and let it melt on your tongue. It tastes like despair and tin. Jenkins produces a harmonica from some hidden pocket. Where the hell does he keep finding these things? And plays a few bars of stardust. The notes hang in the air like ghosts, then fade into the trees. Think they'll try again today? He asks when the song ends. You glance at the eastern tree line. They didn't come this far to give up. A runner comes down the line, his breath puffing like a steam engine. Patton's breaking through, he gasps. Maybe tomorrow. Jenkins rolls his eyes. Maybe tomorrow we'll all grow wings and fly the hell out of here. But the rumor spreads anyway, moving from foxhole to foxhole like a living thing. You watch faces light up with something dangerously close to hope. It scares you more than the Germans ever did. Hope is a luxury you can't afford. Not when your breath still fogs in the air. Not when every tree could hide a sniper. Not when. Crack. A single rifle shot from the north. Then silence. Everyone freezes. 5 minutes pass. Nothing follows. Scout, Jenkins mutters. Testing our positions. You nod, but keep your rifle trained on the trees. The waiting is the worst part. The not knowing. A scream tears through the forest. Not pain. Not fear. Rage. You're up and moving before you think. Jenkins at your side. 20 yards down the line, a soldier is standing in his foxhole, shaking his fist at the trees. They took my boots, he's screaming. The bastards took my goddamn boots. Sure enough, his feet are wrapped in bloody rags. His boots vanished. A night raid while you slept. The Germans are close enough now to steal your shoes right off your feet. That's when the first mortar round hits. The explosion knocks you backward into the snow. Dirt and ice rain down as you scramble for cover. More rounds follow. Whomp, 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 walking their way toward your position. You press yourself into the frozen earth, mouth full of snow, waiting for the world to end. But it doesn't. The shelling stops as suddenly as it began. Your ears ring. Someone is crying. The bootless soldier is laughing like a madman. Jenkins helps you up. His lips move, but you can't hear the words over the ringing. You just nod anyway. The rest of the day passes in a haze of cold and tension. You clean your rifle for the 10th time. Jenkins trades his last cigarette for a pair of socks that might actually fit. You take turns dozing, though neither of you really sleeps. As dusk falls, the temperature drops like a stone. Your breath frosts your collar. Your fingers won't bend properly. Jenkins starts humming again. Some song you don't recognize, but somehow remember. That's when you see it. A flicker of movement near the eastern tree line. Just a shadow among shadows. Then another, and another. Jenkins stops humming. The Germans are coming. Not with tanks this time. Not with planes. With men. The shadows between the trees solidify into shapes. Gray-green uniforms dusted with snow. Coal scuttle helmets bobbing like macabre mushrooms. They move with eerie synchronization. 5, 10, maybe 15 men advancing in a loose skirmish line. Your finger finds the trigger without conscious thought. Jenkins breathes a single syllable that carries the weight of a funeral bell. Volksgrenadiers. German infantry. Not elite troops, but desperate men with nothing left to lose. The Ardennes offensive is their last gamble too. A flare suddenly bursts overhead, bathing the forest in ghastly white light. The lead German freezes. A boy really couldn't be older than 18, his eyes wide as a deer's. For one impossible second, Yulak gazes across 50 yards of frozen hell. Then the night explodes. Your M1 barks first, the .30-06 round catching the boy high in the chest. He folds like a marionette with cut strings. All around you, rifles erupt, M1s chattering, K98s answering, the staccato rhythm punctuated by the occasional thump of grenades. Tree line. 2 o'clock. Jenkins shouts, firing methodically. You pick your targets. Exhale. Squeeze. Reload. The drill is automatic now. A German stumbles, clutching his stomach. Another drops behind a fallen log, his rifle poking out like a venomous tongue. Then the machine guns join the chorus. German MG-42s spitting 1,200 rounds per minute, their distinctive ripping sound earning them the nickname Hitler's buzzsaw. Snow and bark erupt around your foxhole as bullets stitch the ground. You duck low, pressing your helmet against the frozen dirt. Jenkins is suddenly beside you, his face smeared with soot and something darker. They're flanking left, he yells over the din. You risk a glance. Sure enough, shadows are moving through the underbrush, trying to get behind your position. Standard German tactics. Fix you with fire, then slip around the sides. You grab 2 grenades from your belt. The pins come out with your teeth, a stupid habit that's probably given you lead poisoning by now. You count to 3, then lob them toward the movement. The double crump sends geysers of snow and pine needles skyward. A scream follows, then more MG-42 fire. Somewhere down the line, a man starts shouting in German, commands or curses, you can't tell. A flare goes up, illuminating the slaughterhouse. Bodies sprawled in unnatural positions, blood black against the snow, the living still shooting, reloading, dying. Your rifle clicks empty. You fumble for another clip, fingers numb. The Germans are closer now, 30 yards? 20? Close enough to see the frost on their mustaches, the desperation in their eyes. Jenkins is firing single shots, conserving ammo. Where's that goddamn mortar support? As if in answer, a shell whistles overhead and detonates behind the German line. Then another, and another. American 60mm mortars at last. The Germans waver. The boy you shot first is still alive, crawling toward cover, leaving a crimson snail trail behind him. His mouth moves silently, calling for his mother maybe, or praying. Another mortar round lands dead center in their formation. When the smoke clears, the attack has broken. Those still able are retreating into the trees, dragging wounded comrades. The boy is left behind. Silence settles like a shroud. Your hands shake uncontrollably now, adrenaline and cold conspiring to wreck your fine motor control. Jenkins slumps against the foxhole wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Clip, he demands, holding out a trembling hand. You pass him your last one. He loads it with ritual slowness. Down the line, someone starts vomiting. Another man is openly weeping. The bootless soldier from earlier is gone. Evacuated or dead, you'll never know. The boy in the snow is still moving. Barely. Jenkins sights down his rifle. Hesitates. Looks at you. You shake your head. He lowers the weapon. The night stretches on, each minute an eternity. You take first watch while Jenkins dozes fitfully. The German boy's moans grow fainter, then stop altogether before dawn. When morning comes, it brings an unexpected gift: clouds. Thick, heavy, snow-laden clouds rolling in from the west. Jenkins squints at the sky. That's not just weather. You follow his gaze. The clouds are moving wrong. Too fast. Too purposeful. Then you see them, dark specks materializing from the gloom. Not planes, not birds, parachutes, hundreds of them. The air suddenly thrums with engines. See, 47 Dakotas lumbering through the overcast, their cargo doors gaping open. Supply crates tumble earthward, swaying beneath candy-striped canopies. "They did it," Jenkins whispers, voice cracking. "The bastards actually did it. Operation Repulse, the Allied airlift to save Bastogne." The first crates hit the ground with dull thuds. Medics and cooks sprint from cover to secure them before the Germans can react. You watch numbly as a crate bursts open near your position. Rations, ammo, and, "Would you look at that?" Jenkins breathes. Morphine syrettes, sulfa drugs, fresh bandages, and socks. Beautiful, woolen, dry socks. You're still staring at them when the first German artillery round screams in, their farewell gift to the now reinforced Bastogne garrison. The shell lands harmlessly in an empty field, but the message is clear. This isn't over. But for the first time in weeks, you dare to think, maybe we'll win. The morphine syrettes glint like silver bullets in the weak morning light. You stare at them, mesmerized. These tiny metal tubes that mean the difference between screaming yourself hoarse and floating painlessly toward whatever comes next. Jenkins is already tearing open a crate with his bayonet. "Christmas came late," he mutters, tossing you a pair of socks so fresh they still smell like wool mills back home. You peel off your boot with ritual slowness. The sock underneath has fused to your flesh in places. Peeling it away reveals toes the color of week-old meat, 2 nails already blackened and loose. The medic who eventually limps over takes one look and whistles through his teeth. "Third stage frostbite," he says, snapping open a morphine tube. "We're getting you out." The needle slips into your thigh like a lover's kiss. Warmth blooms outward, turning your veins to liquid sunlight. For the first time in weeks, you relax. Jenkins helps you to the evacuation point, a cluster of jeeps near what's left of the town square. The buildings stand like broken teeth, their walls pockmarked with shrapnel scars. A dead German sniper still hangs from the church steeple, his winter camouflage flapping in the wind like a macabre flag. "You're lucky," the driver says as you collapse into the back seat. "Yesterday we were hauling out guys with their guts in their hands." The jeep bounces along frozen ruts, each jolt sending fresh waves of morphine-induced bliss through your system. You watch Bastogne recede through half-lidded eyes, the cratered streets, the skeletal trees, the foxholes where your breath still hangs frozen in the air. Jenkins grips your shoulder as the first big bump nearly sends you sprawling. "Stay with me, partner. You want to tell him about the cabin you'll build someday, the one with a fireplace big enough to roast a whole pig, the porch swing where you'll drink bourbon without counting bullets, the dog that will never know war." But the words won't come. Instead, you watch the snow swirl behind the jeep, each flake a tiny surrender flag. The morphine is singing now, its siren song pulling you under. Somewhere ahead is a field hospital. Warmth, real beds. Somewhere behind, the war goes on. You close your eyes just as the first snowflakes of a new storm begin to fall. The field hospital smells like antiseptic and burnt coffee, a bizarre oasis of relative warmth in the frozen Hell's Cape you've escaped. White canvas walls ripple in the wind, occasionally revealing glimpses of the storm still raging outside. A nurse with tired eyes cuts away your boot with surgical scissors. "Third-degree frostbite," she confirms, poking at your blackened toes with a penlight. "We'll need to amputate at least 2. The word should shock you. Instead, you just nod. After weeks in the foxhole, losing bits of yourself feels inevitable, like shedding dead skin. Jenkins slumps in the adjacent cot, shoveling lukewarm stew into his mouth with the focus of a man rediscovering fire. His fingers are wrapped in gauze, but he's otherwise intact. "They're sending me back," he says between mouthfuls. "Reconstituted unit. Some new offensive down south." You stare at the ceiling, tracking a water droplet as it snakes along a tent seam. The morphine makes everything soft at the edges, like viewing the world through frosted glass. "Don't get shot," you mumble. He snorts. "Don't freeze to death." A medic arrives with a clipboard. "You're being transferred to Paris," he tells you. "Proper hospital. Maybe even home after that." Home. The word feels foreign now. You try picturing your mother's kitchen, the yellow curtains, the smell of baking bread, but the image won't hold. All you see is snow and pine trees and the way Jenkins' breath fogged when he laughed. They load you onto a truck with 5 other casualties. The man across from you is missing half his face, the bandages already blooming red. Another rocks silently, clutching phantom limbs. As the engine roars to life, Jenkins appears at the tailgate. He's holding something, a crumpled sketch of that cabin with the porch swing. "Don't forget," he says, pressing it into your good hand. The truck lurches forward before you can reply. You watch through the canvas flap as your friend grows smaller, his outline blurred by snow and distance, and something wet in your eyes. Then the road turns, and he's gone. The hospital train sways like a drunken sailor, its rhythmic clacking lulling the wounded into uneasy sleep. You stare out the grimy window at the French countryside blurring past, snow-dusted fields and burnt-out tanks frozen in eternal retreat. Your foot throbs beneath layers of bandage, a dull ache that morphine can't quite mute. The surgeon took 3 toes, leaving your right foot looking like a poorly whittled doll's. Lucky, he'd said. Could have lost the whole foot. The compartment smells of iodine and unwashed bodies. A lieutenant across from you keeps muttering about tree bursts, his hands twitching in his lap like wounded birds. Next to him, a kid no older than 17 stares blankly at his lap where his left leg used to be. A nurse moves through the car like a ghost, checking dressings and doling out pills. When she reaches you, she pauses. "You're from Bastogne?" You nod. She presses an extra blanket into your hands. "They're calling it the miracle." You want to laugh. There were no miracles in that frozen hell. Just men breaking slower than the enemy. Just Jenkins sharing his last chocolate bar. Just boys pissing themselves rather than leave their foxholes. The train plunges into a tunnel, plunging the car into momentary darkness. When light returns, the landscape has changed, the war-scarred earth giving way to untouched snow, pure and blinding. Paris appears on the horizon like a mirage, the Eiffel Tower rising above the rooftops, whole and unbroken. Women in colorful coats walk dogs along the Seine. A cafe spills golden light onto the sidewalk where patrons laugh over steaming cups. It's another world, one that kept turning while you were buried alive in snow and silence. They carry you off the train on a stretcher. The winter sun feels different here, softer, like it's forgotten how to bite. As the orderlies wheel you toward the hospital doors, you catch a glimpse of yourself in a window. A gaunt stranger with hollow eyes and a beard crusted in filth. A man who used to be a boy. They'll give you a bed with clean sheets here. Hot meals. Letters from home. But as the doors swing shut behind you, all you can think is, Jenkins is still out there. And the war isn't done with either of you. The hospital sheets smell of bleach and something faintly floral. Lavender maybe, or the ghost of perfume from some long-gone visitor. You lie perfectly still, afraid to disturb the pristine whiteness stretched over your body like a shroud. Outside the tall windows, Paris continues its oblivious dance. Lovers strolling along the Seine, artists sketching in cafes, the occasional military truck rumbling past like an unwelcome reminder. A nurse with kind eyes changes your dressings every morning. She hums while she works, some French tune you don't recognize, but which reminds you of Jenkins' harmonica. The wounds look worse in daylight, your toes ending abruptly in stitched-up nubs, the skin an angry purple where frostbite tried to claim more. Your general is coming today, she tells you on the 3rd morning, smoothing the sheets with practiced hands. You blink. General who? She smiles like you've made a joke. The famous one. The cowboy. It takes 3 more hours for the pieces to click. Patton. George S. Patton himself is touring the hospital, doling out medals and handshakes like some visiting deity. You practice saluting in bed, your arm trembling with the effort. When he finally arrives, he's both more and less than you imagined. Smaller in person, but radiating an energy that makes the nurses straighten their caps. His ivory-handled pistols gleam under the hospital lights as he moves from bed to bed, occasionally stopping to ask questions in his oddly high-pitched voice. He pauses at your bedside, scanning your chart. Bastogne. Yes, sir. His jaw works like he's chewing on the word. Cold enough for you. The question hangs in the air. You think of mornings when your breath froze to your scarf, of nights spent clutching your rifle like a lover, of Jenkins' laughter turning to frost in his beard. "We managed, sir." Patton nods sharply, as if this is the correct answer. He pins a purple heart to your pillow with surprising gentleness. "The 101st saved more than just a crossroads," he says, "more to the room than to you." Then he's gone in a swirl of leather and boot polish, trailing aids like ducklings. The metal winks in the sunlight, a tiny piece of purple and gold that somehow weighs more than your pack ever did. You touch it lightly, half expecting to feel the cold of Bastogne still clinging to the metal. That night, the dreams come. Not of combat, you could handle that, but of small, terrible things. The sound of a spoon scraping the last bits from a ration tin. The way snow creaks underfoot at 20 below. The particular shade of blue that appears under fingernails when frostbite sets in. You wake gasping, your hands clutching at phantom gear. The Parisian moonlight paints the walls in soft silver, so different from the harsh white reflections off Bastogne's snowfields. Somewhere down the hall, another man screams in his sleep. The next morning brings a letter. The envelope is smudged and worn at the edges, the handwriting unmistakably your sister's. You hold it for a long moment, staring at your name written in her looping script, afraid of what reading it might do, what doors it might open between this clean white world and the one you've left behind. When you finally tear it open, the mundane details hit hardest. Tommy lost a tooth. The old apple tree blew down in a storm. She's saving sugar rations to bake your favorite cake when you return. You read it 3 times, then fold it carefully along the original creases and tuck it under your pillow with the metal. The 2 objects sit side by side, one speaking of home, the other of war. You wonder if they'll ever stop fighting inside you. A doctor makes rounds after lunch, poking at your foot with cold instruments. "Healing well," he declares in accented English. "We'll have you walking by week's end." The thought terrifies you more than any German tank ever did. The physical therapist's hands are warm and firm as they guide your ruined foot into a whirlpool bath. "Breathe through the pain," she instructs in careful English, her fingers pressing against the angry red scars where your toes used to be. The water stings like 1,000 needles, but you bite your lip until the taste of copper floods your mouth. Across the rehab ward, a Marine, missing both legs below the knees, practices walking on prosthetic stumps. His face glistens with sweat as he lurches between parallel bars, his knuckles white around the grips. Every time he falls, the orderlies cheer when he gets back up. You try standing on day 3. The floor feels impossibly far away, your balance shot to hell. The therapist steadies you as your remaining toes curl against cold tile, 7 where there should be 10. The mirror shows a hunched creature with hollow eyes, your hospital gown hanging like a shroud. Again, the therapist says when you collapse onto the bench. By week's end, you're shuffling the length of the ward with a cane, your gait uneven but functional. The doctors nod approvingly. The nurses call you a miracle. All you feel is the ghost weight of your missing toes with every step. Mail arrives sporadically. A V-letter from your mother filled with church gossip. A newspaper clipping from your hometown praising our Bastogne heroes. A postcard from Jenkins with just 2 words, "Still kicking." The postmark is smudged beyond recognition. Spring comes to Paris in a riot of cherry blossoms and cafe umbrellas. You sit in the hospital garden watching couples stroll by, their laughter floating over the hedges. A pretty nurse named Simone brings you books. Hemingway, mostly, the war parts carefully dog-eared. "You'll go home soon," she says one afternoon, her fingers brushing yours as she hands over a battered copy of A Farewell to Arms. The title makes you flinch. The discharge papers come on a Tuesday. They list your wounds with clinical precision. Frostbite, severe, 3rd degree. Amputation, 3 digits. Exposure. The word neurosis appears nowhere, though you wake screaming most nights. They outfit you with a custom shoe, thick-soled and roomy enough to accommodate your deformity. The cobbler who measures you clicks his tongue at the scars. "Les Botches did this," he asks. You shake your head. "Winter did." The morning of your departure, Simone brings you a care package, chocolate, cigarettes, a slim volume of Apollinaire's war poetry. She kisses your cheek at the train station, her lips warm and fleeting. Écrivez-moi, she whispers before disappearing into the crowd. The troop ship smells of sweat and salt water, its bunks stacked 3 deep in the hold. You claim a top berth and lie staring at the riveted steel inches from your face, listening to the Atlantic churn below. Somewhere in the darkness, a man sobs quietly. When New York appears on the horizon at dawn, the deck erupts in cheers. You lean against the railing, watching Lady Liberty grow larger, her torch gleaming in the morning light. The sight should stir something in your chest, but all you feel is the persistent ache in your foot and the weight of Jenkins' postcard in your breast pocket. Customs officials wave wounded men through with smiles. A USO girl hands you a donut and a paper flag. The train home smells of fresh paint and new upholstery. Nothing like the cattle cars that took you to basic. Your mother cries when she sees you on the platform. Your father grips your shoulder too tight. Tommy, taller than you remember, stares at your cane with wide eyes. "Did you kill lots of Germans?" he asks. The house smells exactly as it did when you left, lemon polish and baking bread. Your bedroom is untouched, your high school trophies still gathering dust on the dresser. That first night, you lie awake staring at the ceiling, unnerved by the silence. No artillery, no screaming, just the occasional hoot of an owl in the old apple tree. At the town hall ceremony, the mayor gives you a bronze star for conspicuous gallantry. The citation mentions Bastogne by name. When you take the podium, all the prepared words evaporate. You stand mute for 30 seconds before managing, "I was just trying to stay alive." The crowd mistakes this for modesty and applauds wildly. The nightmares follow you home, not of combat, but of small horrors. The sound of a foxhole mate chewing frozen rations, the way ice crystals formed on your eyelashes, the particular squeak your boots made when the frostbite set in. You wake clutching your blanket, convinced you're back in that hole until the moonlight through the curtains proves otherwise. You take a job at the hardware store, measuring lumber and mixing paint. The customers call you hero and ask for war stories. You give them the sanitized version, the cold, the bravery, the triumph. Never the boy who died crawling through his own blood in the snow. Never the sound of Jenkins' harmonica the night the temperature dropped to 20 below. On Sundays, you sit on the porch swing with your damaged foot propped on a pillow, reading the paper. The war news grows steadily better. Allied advances, cities liberated, Hitler's bunker. You skin every casualty list for Jenkins' name, though you'd never admit it aloud. When spring comes to Ohio, the apple tree in the backyard blooms with reckless abandon, its petals drifting onto the grass like snow. You catch yourself staring at it for hours, remembering how different snow looks when you're lying in it, waiting to die. Your mother bakes the promised cake, chocolate with thick frosting, but you can only manage a few bites before the sweetness cloys. That night, you find yourself standing in the bathroom, staring at your reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror. The eyes staring back are older than the face surrounding them. Somewhere in Europe, the war rolls on without you. Somewhere, Jenkins is still kicking. And here you are, alive, whole enough, home. It should feel like victory. So why does it taste like surrender? The hardware store's screen door slams with the same metallic twang it's made for 30 years. You lean against the counter, rolling a handful of nails in your palm, their sharp points pressing into calloused skin. The sound of a child's laughter drifts in from the street, mingling with the scent of fresh-cut lumber and linseed oil. "Hey, Captain, need a hand with these 2x4s? Old Man Wilson calls from the back, his nickname for you equal parts respect and pity. You push off the counter, your modified shoes scuffing against sawdust-strewn floorboards. The limp is less pronounced now, though rainy days still make the missing toes ache like they're still there. Phantom pains whispering of frozen foxholes. Summer settles over the town like a warm blanket. You take to sitting by the river after work, watching the water ripple over smooth stones. Sometimes you bring Simone's book of war poetry, though the words blur together after a few pages. Mostly you just sit, listening to the cicadas drone and trying not to think of how their rhythm matches an MG-42's firing rate. The letter arrives on a Tuesday. Thin blue envelope, postmarked somewhere in Germany. Your name typed neatly on the front. Inside is a single sheet of paper and a charcoal sketch. A rough but recognizable cabin with a porch swing, smoke curling from the chimney. No signature, just 3 words scrawled in the corner. Still building it. You stare at the sketch until the lines waver, tracing the familiar strokes with your thumb. The paper smells faintly of tobacco and gun oil. That night at the VFW hall, the new bartender, a kid who missed the war by 6 months, pours your whiskey without asking. The radio plays Glenn Miller between casualty reports from the Pacific. 2 absent friends, someone toasts, raising a glass to the photographs lining the back wall. Boys frozen forever in uniform, their smiles never touching their eyes. You clink your glass against the others, the sound ringing hollow. The whiskey burns going down, but not enough to erase the memory of Jenkins sharing his last chocolate bar, or the way his harmonica sounded in the pre-dawn stillness. Walking home under a sky choked with stars, you realize you're humming Stardust, the same tune Jenkins played that last morning before the tanks came. The melody hangs in the humid air, a fragile bridge between then and now. Your mother has left the porch light on. Through the kitchen window, you see her rolling dough for tomorrow's bread, her movements calm and measured. A simple domestic ritual that survived the war intact. You pause on the steps, the sketch heavy in your pocket. Somewhere between Bastogne and this quiet Ohio night, you stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. The nightmares come less frequently now. You can look at snow without tasting blood. It's not healing exactly, but it's close enough.